Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Jack's Later Notes once again. Like, share, and subscribe, and all those things. And here's details of something else. And today we are going to do set 7. We already did set 6 of Child Pedagogy, CDP, and some pedagogical notes. Those are, in a broader sense. So it's going to help another subject, but mostly right now it can be used for child development and pedagogy for CTET exam, upcoming exams, September 6th, I think so. Let's start. Question number 1. Edward L. Thorndike is best known for proposing the theory of multiple intelligence or law of effect or classic conditioning theory or hierarchy of needs. So what did Thorndike talked about? Law of multiple intelligence, it's Howard Gardner. Law of effect is his classical conditioner, maybe B.F. Skinner and others. Did of parent conditional hierarchy of needs is by Maslow. So the answer is law of effect. What did he talk about? Let's see. Edward Leigh Thorndike, or E.L. Thorndike, as we know, was one of the earliest psychologists to scientifically study learning. He is known for connectionism, trial and error learning, laws of learning. His work became the foundation for later behaviorism and influence psychologists like B.F. Skinner, like we talked about. B.F. Skinner, they get influence from Edward Leigh Thorndike. So Thorndike's first theory was connectionism, which is Thorndike believed learning happens by forming connection between stimulus and response, because it's a situation, a problem, and then action and reaction. How would you solve this problem? So it's stimulus first and response later. So as a connection, that is stimulus response connection. If a response leads to satisfaction, the connection becomes stronger, and if it leads to discomfort, the connection weakens. If you can solve a math problems, you get happy, and if you don't, you get bored and stop doing it. If you do get the answer, you are excited to do more, that sort of things. Then come trial and error. It basically means try different things until you get the right one. It's the most famous cat and the puzzle box theory, where cat scratches randomly and then finally accidentally pressed one lever and get the wood. So over the time, many wrong movement decreased and the correct ones, he started to get to the point that which give him the food. So likewise in life, we try certain many things, but ultimately the ones that get us result, we started doing that more. And so that's the whole idea of trial and error learning. So Thorndike said learning occurs through trying different responses until the correct one is found. This is called trial and error learning. Famous puzzle box experiment. Thorndike experimented on hungry cats. Experiment set up cat placed inside a puzzle box. Food kept outside box could be opened by pressing a lever or pulling a string. What happened was, at first the cat scratch randomly jumped, pushed once. Eventually, by accident, it pressed the lever, door opened, cat got food. So after many trials, rogue movement decreased, correct response became faster. Learning occurs gradually through repeated attempts, elimination of wrong responses, strengthening successful responses. This is the trial and error learning. Then come correct. Oh, wait a second. There are characteristics of trial and error learning. Number one is random attempt at first. So what does learner tries many responses? Error gradually reduce, meaning wrong action received over the time, because with all these attempts, whoever get him the best result, he's going to do that, and the one that leads to nowhere, he'll stop doing that. So that meaning is wrong action will disappear over time. Then comes successful response strengthen, and then when whoever give the best result, that will do correct behavior become habitual. So that's how you finally get to the point where you do all things in a correct order. So that's the whole thing. When you get successful result, what you do is you'll do that thing that gives you correct response, and it became habitual. Then comes practice is important. Yes, repetition improves learning. when you repeat something, when you practice something, you like people says practice make perfect. So that's the thing. Then come Thorndike laws of learning. This is very important. It's very simple. It's very important. It will have some question from CTET comes from this particular theory law. These are the most important part of his theory. Number one is primary law. In primary law, what happens? Laws of effect. Most famous is laws of effect. Response followed by satisfaction are strengthened. Response followed by discomfort are weakened. It's simple things. Reward. Sometimes you do good things in class, and if these good things got rewarded, it will strengthen that behavior. If you pass an exam and you get some sort of prize, what you do it, you will try and get better in winning every day, passing every exam and everything, so that gets strengthened, right? And likewise, if someone studies hard and he get embarrassed for it, so what does it, it will get weakened, because his he did not get rewarded, rather it's an unpleasant situation. So that sort of thing. So a lot of laws of effect is, effect has reaction, good effect has good reaction, good negative effect has negative reaction, that sort of thing. So likewise, response followed by satisfaction are strengthened, and response followed by discomfort are weakened, meaning reward strengthens behavior, unpleasant outcomes weaken behavior. Example, a student studies hard and get praised, result is student studies more in the future. Likewise, if a behavior cause embarrassment, it is likely to repeat. This law later influenced reinforcement theory. Reinforcement theory is about positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement. It also has the same thing. With positive reinforcement, character gets strength, good character, good behavior strengthened, and with negative reinforcement, it get decreased. Sometimes with negative reinforcement also, in a way positive reinforcement, we already about that in class 4 and 5. Operant condition, then behavior modification, and especially the work of BF Skinner. So then come law of exercise. It's simple thing, practice makes perfect. So likewise, when you do practice learning, strengthen learning. When you practice mathematics, you get better in mathematics. So that's something. This is two parts: law of use and disuse. It's a simple thing. When you use something, it gets smart and strengthened. Then you don't use it, eventually become useless. Even with biology and adaptation, evolution, if you from now on, if you just use your right hand, it will get more useful. You could do more things, and if you just stop using your left hand, eventually over the years it will be useless. So that sort of thing. Repeated uses strengthen connection. Daily math practice improves skill. Likewise, law of disease, law of practice weaken language forgotten after years without it. If you don't speak a certain language over the years, you will just forget about it. So that sort of thing. Even the riding bicycle, people forget about that. So everything needs practice. So you guys need to practice a lot. Law of readiness is something. When you are prepared to do, you are well prepared to do something, you will do it. It's not like if you were a child and if it's a complicated thing. It's a 16-year-old kid mentally prepared to do business, he can do it. And if a 36-year-old guy mentally unprepared started to do a business, he can do it. So most important thing in doing everything, you have to be mentally prepared. So that sort of thing. Learning occurs best when the learner is mentally and physically ready. You have to also be physically ready, right? So if readiness exists, learning becomes satisfying. If forced without reading, frustration occurs. If someone forced you to do something you don't like doing, right, that causes some sort of restrictions. Example, teaching advanced algebra to child not mentally prepared may create confusion, obviously. So you have to clear the basic. Clearing the basic of that particular mathematics problem is what is called law of readiness, because you get ready. So what we get three. First one is uh, law. These three are primary laws. That is, law of effect means you know whatever strengthen behavior that is rewarded, and some behavior that are causing embarrassment is likely to what, less likely to repeat. So that's law of effect is what, response that has satisfaction is get strengthened, and response that cause discomfort is get weakened. That is primary law and first law. One is law of effect. Then primary law of exercise. You got to practice to perfect or strengthen learning. Then come law of readiness. It's about you have to mentally and physically prepare to learn something. Then comes secondary. Those are minor laws, not very important. But if some question arrives in the CTET, what you do? So let's just take a sneak peek at it. Thorndike later added several subordinate laws. Number one is multiple response. Learner tries many methods before success. Trying different way to solve a problem is sort of like trial and error type of things. Set or attitude, meaning mental attitude affects learning. Obviously, interested student learn faster. Same, it's kind of same as law of readiness. If mental attitude, if you have a good attitude about learning, you will understand and learn it faster. If your attitude is bad, you cannot really do that. Prepondency of elements, meaning learning focuses on important aspect of a situation. For example, in driving, focus on traffic signal rather than advertisement. You have to be what focus on important aspect of situation. If you just started reading a book and you care about what's the texture of the page is and what font that those things, you have to be focused. Those, you have to be focused on what you are going to achieve and what are going to help you in the future. So that sort of thing. Response by analogy. Past experience helps solving problems. That is correct, because past experience you may lose and you may gain, you may get right, you may get less. So that would help you solve new problems, because you get your lessons from that. Example, knowing bicycle riding as in learning motorcycle. That is a simple thing. When you ride bicycle, the first day you know started riding motorbike, you can do it, because bicycle learning gives you the whole equilibrium thing and balancing thing. So that's it's I've seen people don't really know how to ride the bicycle. It's really tough for them to start riding motorbike. So then come associative shifting. A response can gradually shift from one stimulus to another. A response can gradually shift from associative shifting. You are getting shifted. Your response is shifting from one stimulus to another. So that's another thing. Gradually, it's not just momentarily. It's over the time you get the answer, and where to present things in a more sophisticated manner. So then come criticism. Criticism happened later as studies by Wolf and Kohler applying that it is too mechanical and humans do not always learn by blind trial and error. Insight and thinking also matter. Insight learning by Kohler, so Kohler did that criticism of Thorndike, that is that he human don't just learn by trial and error. Human don't are not animal, like cat. He did random things, and one that get him to food, he started doing that more, and eventually there is no margin or margin of error. Whenever he is hungry, he put that particular lever and get his food. But that criticized by Wolverine Collar, applying that it is too mechanical and it needs inside learning. So inside learning given by Collar, here written, we'll discuss another time. It's not really here, because what we are doing is it's really hard to explain all theory in one video, because the video would get like 3-4 hours. So what we did is we explain theory, laws and everything in multiple videos. So most important is to get see CDP 1 to 5. They had the most theory, but 6 7, this is seventh one, I guess. 6 7 also has some very important. So actually you have to just watch all the videos, because in every single one of them we somehow explain one theory that is helpful, and we break it down properly. So you guys need to check them out. Here comes question number 2. All right, let's see. It took like what 14 minutes to just explain question number 1. So it gets hard if you do that in every video. It's going to be 7 hours long, and nobody can watch them. So we did what is 14-15 minutes every single video. We just did a different one. So according to Thorndike laws or law of effect, responses followed by satisfying consequences are likely to be what? So what is law of responses followed by satisfying? Let's say if the question says it is dissatisfying, then it will be weakened, but satisfying means repeated. So the answer is repeated. It will get repeated because the answer gets satisfying. and satisfaction. Question number 3. Which of the following experiment is associated with Edward L. Thorndike? Bobodal experiment, Skinner box. No, it's puzzle box experiment by A.L. Thorndike. So the answer is puzzle box experiment. Question number 4. Assertion. Thorndike believed learning occurs through trial and error. That is correct. So assertion is correct. So in assertion and reasoning, you have to do what? First, we check if assertion is correct. So here assertion correct. Then come learner gradually eliminate unsuccessful response and retain successful ones. And the reason is correct. But if do they share the relationship of because? Let's read it again. Thorndike believed learning occurs through trial and error because learner gradually limit answers response and retain this. Yes, of course. So both A and R are true and correct are correctly explained. Say yes. Question number 5. Jerome Brunner is most closely associated with what? Jerome Brunner is most closely associated with operant discovery, classical or moral. Apparently with discovery learning. Yes, question. What is discovery learning? So this idea was given by Jerome Brunner. Brunner believed the student learn best when they actually discover. So that is something it's talk about that when you discover something on your own, you get the best answer. For example, you started reading book, right? So you explored that book in real life. Teacher can be a guide, a facilitator, anything. So when you explore, what you do is you get full concentration. When if teacher read you about photosynthesis, it's just theoretical, right? You would know nothing about, you just get bookish knowledge and everything. But what you do is you read something about photosynthesis, then you come home and you see a plants and how plants grow and how it make food. You take note, and what you are doing is you are practically discovering things, right? So if you do that, you will remember it for the longest of time, right? So when you, even if social studies, for example, uh, you are you talk about early medieval history, and then what you do is you yourself go to museum and started discovering things, seeing things how that happened, not just bookish knowledge. Or you go to internet, you got a PowerPoint presentation and see this, you are just discovering these things, right? So that would have last more in your mind than just transfer of knowledge getting. So that sort of thing. So here's the example, like I talk about, directly telling to the student plant sunlight to grow out the teacher grow out plant and everything. Teacher may let student grow one plant in sunlight and another in darkness to observe the difference between. So that's how they discovered the concept and themselves. So that's the thing. So Jerome Brunner discovered concept. Yes. Jerome Brunner is an important educational psychologist who believed that education should help students think, explore, and discover, not just memorize information. He was so I believe that education should, student think, explore, discover, not just memorize information. So memorizing information is not really considered something of an education itself. Just memorizing facts and figures, it's not going to be helpful if you don't understand it. So what he talked about is when you want to understand it, you better discover it. So that would help you retain knowledge for the longest time. He was strongly influenced by cognitive psychology, which focuses on how the mind works, understanding, remembrance, all of that sort of thing. Brunner believes students learn best when they discover knowledge by themselves. Instead of giving direct answer, the teacher should create situation for exploration, ask guiding question, encourage curiosity and problem solving. The learner becomes active, not passive. Discovery learning is a method where students observe, investigate, and compare facts and everything. You know, where students observe, investigate, compare, analyze, reach conclusion on their own. So this is what NEP and NCP and whatever this educational board was trying to do in these times. Get more child-centered education. So child-centered education is all about discovering yourself. Teacher should act as a facilitator or only a guide. So discussion encourages active participation, curiosity, inquiry, learning by experience, problem solving, intrinsic motivation. So role of teacher is just a facilitator, guide, helper. Teacher should provide hints, ask question. Teacher should do is what, scaffolding sort of things. Yes. So Bunner theory of representation is, do not say children learn in three ways. First one is inactive. representation. Learning by doing, children learns through action and movement, right? A child learns cycling by actually riding a bike. So that's what Brunner's whole idea is. Children learns by doing it. Then come iconic representation, learning through images. Children learn through pictures and visuals, models and everything. Then comes symbolic. you know when you, for example, when you, there is a kid, a little kid, for first thing you do is, get a alphabet box, right? Symbolic. So A is Lego S type of things, B numbers, plastic numbers, those things. There are symbolic learning to symbols, and that's how they learn through symbol. And image is image book. When we were a kid, first thing we get was a big image book. A for apple, there's big apple in the pictures. And then, even younger than that, child, you get symbolic is a big box of alphabets and numbers are plastic, three dimension, when you can hold it in your hand. So this sort of thing, these stages are not stick. Stages like age, Brunner believed all three forms can work together. Yes, that is one. So that's how his representation of learning, discovery. Brunner's theory of representation. He gave a theory of representation, but mainly he talked about discovery learning. And so, in a nutshell, inactive representation is something that learn to action, doing it. Learning by doing. That's what iconic is, seeing pictures and models and videos and all these things, symbolic things in, you know, use of symbols, right? Numbers, language and abstract symbols, that sorts of things. You see things like, all types of mathematical symbols, those things. But these are, you can see them in any stages, like, so they are not age stages, age, like those Jean Piaget and others it was talked about. Any age can do these things simply. You can, 90-year-old can watch a video and learn things. Likewise, your child run through this and like. So anyway, there's another thing is called spiral curriculum. Jerome Brun talked about it. It's something that is, revisit repeatedly over time. You can, for example, we talked about science like circle, dark circle in HS in a broader sense, but we also get them in class 9 and 10th. But they are not as deep as, all those, concept and things, they get broader with classes. For example, you understand something, just a gist of it in smaller classes. You go to, higher class, you learn that in more depth. So that's things. A curriculum approach proposed by Jerome Bruner, in which important topics are repeated repeatedly over the time with increasing depth and complexity. Learner returns to the same concept repeatedly, but each time with more advanced understanding. So here's a little bit different. You don't learn the whole thing at once. You just do it fast. Do it upper, then you got lower, deeper, deeper, deeper. So that's the thing. He believed any subject can be taught to any age if presented. If you presented it properly, any subject can be taught. A topic should be introduced simply first. you know if we are talking about, let's say, solar system, a chapter which is simply talk about what there are 9 planet, 8 planet, then there asteroid and everything. But then we go visit deeper, what those planet, what's the space, and what other things in space, and how the time works and everything. Can you go with the spaceship in the, then repeatedly each time with a little bit, deeper level. This is called spiral curriculum. You just spiraling it back and back and back with more deeper, more deeper, more deeper. uh, it's like the movie Light here, right? When he tried to escape that planet, fast do it, cannot do it like 100 times. Then over the time he just get deeper and deeper. So with more deeper knowledge you acquire, you understand more of the subject, that sort of thing. Example of spiral career. Every early class child learns earth revolves around the sun. Higher class student learns gravity, elliptical orbit, planetary motion. No, like what I said about that, I didn't see this, but I also gave the solar system example. Same topic returns with increasing complexity. That's the thing with spiral. Every time a topic return with increasing complexity. Jerome Bruner believed that true learning happens when students actively discover knowledge through exploration and guided problem solving. That's the whole thing about his theory is discovery. Then come question number 6 finally. According to Brunner, students learn best when they memorize facts repeatedly, know, discover concept by themselves, learn through punishment, depend completely on each other. So the answer is discover concept by themselves is your answer. Yes, question number 7. Which of the following is not one of Brunner's mode of representation? Not one. He talked about inactive. He talked about iconic. Inactive is when you do things. Iconic is images, and here is it. Inactive when you do things, like I said, doing. Iconic is pictures and visuals. Symbolic is abstract symbols that we don't know. Let X be this. Let mathematical things. Let X be this and that. So the answer is operational is not one of modes of representation of Jerome Bruner. Here's the question number 8. Match the following. What did Thorndike talk about? He talked about what? Discovery learning, social learning, operant conditional, law of effect, Brunner, Bandura, Skinner. So Thorndike talk about law of effect. So the answer A1 and 3 has 1, A4, A4. Then come Brunner. Brunner talk about discovery learning, B1. So the answer is 1, A4, B1, because this, if you don't have to know all four of them. If you just know one or two, you somehow make it up. Bandura talk about what? Social learning theory, and Skinner talk about operant conditioning. We all know that, so the answer is 1. Here is Albert Bandura. Albert Bandura's theory mainly emphasized on what? Trial and error learning. Wait a second. Oh, we already did Thorndike, Brunner, and Skinner. So Albert Bandura was there. Albert Bandura mainly emphasized trial and error learning. Oh, sorry, it's a question. It doesn't have any number, so I get confused a bit. So question number 8, then question number 9. 9 doesn't have any numbers. So what did Albert theory emphasize? Albert Bandura theory emphasizes learning through observation and imitation. Yes, learning through observation and it doesn't have any. Wait a second. 9. If this is okay, so this is 9. So this should be 8, right? But this is 8. So yes, there is one more question here. Anyway. So Albert Bandura talked about learning through observation and imitation. So here is his theory. Albert Bandura, social learning theory. Bandura said people learn by observing others, like imitating, observation, and modeling. Key process of this observation is first attention, because you are imitating someone. So attention is required to understand and get what he or she is. First attention required to understand what he or she is like. Saying, doing, or then retain that information, then reproduce that, and then you need proper motivation. Important is in modeling. Children imitate parents, teachers, celebrities, etc. Influence behavior is strengthened by reward and weakened by punishment. Even if you imitate something from someone, if it doesn't get rewarded, if it gets scolded, it's suddenly, and apparently over the time it weakens. If you under some curse word from stranger, imitate and somehow learn that through observation, and parents scolded you for that, it will weaken over time. Bovadol experiment is Bandura showed that children imitate aggressive behavior seen in adults. That is true. If you have a troubled family, children will also get troubled, that sort of thing. If your parents were always screaming and kicking and everything, the kid will also be a bit messed up. Education importance. Children, teachers should be good role models. Yes, media influence children behavior. That is true. Positive reinforcement, encourage learning. That is 100% true. Then come question number 9. The famous Bobo doll experiment demonstrated what? Cognitive development, operant conditioning, or observational learning. So it's Bobo doll experiment talked about our observational learning, when the child see how parents reacted to something. So he over the time he observe and learn, observational learning. So Albert Bandura observational learning theory. Here it is the main gist of it. Observational learning means learning by watching others and then imitating their behavior. Bandura believed that people do not learn only through direct experience or reward punishment, but also by observing models. Example: a child watches parents speaking politely and starts speaking politely too. That's the thing. If your parents are, you know, there's a movie where Ferrari ki Sawari, the main lead, they broke the traffic law, right? But he was in a hurry and there was no police to give the challan, so he broke that law. And then what he did is he came back to the police station, and every policeman was like, if you get away with it, why would you come back here? He said, like, his kid was with him, and he would say like things like, whatever this kid see, he will learn. So I have to be a law-abiding citizen for my kid to understand and have become a good gentleman. So that sort of thing. you know if your parents were good and nice and speak politely, children will imitate that. So that sort of thing. If you That's when media is most important to be exposed to the children. If a children see a violent actor doing violent stuff, he will also try to imitate, because nowadays most people, children, everyone's were very much celebrity influencer oriented. So that's the thing. That's where you have to be a bit restricted when it comes to exposed to the social media. Step process of observational learning. Bandura gave four processes. First is attention, like we talk about attention, retention, reduction. Attention is learning, to pay attention to the model, pay attention to the person, how he is doing things as you are observing. So you have to pay attention. Retention is, remember and retain those what you observed through attention. Then come reproduction, try to imitate and perform that behavior. Motivation is you have to need motivation to continue that behavior. If you could, if you learn something today, if you get motivated, you will continue it. If you don't get motivated, somehow it will step away. Important concept is model, the person whose behavior is observed. That is important concept. Imitation is copying the observed behavior. Then comes vicarious reinforcement. Learning occurs by seeing other reward or punishment. If you see someone doing some things and you attain that, and then you say that person is getting rewarded for it, then you will do it. Then if that person get punished for it, then you will also stop doing it. So if a student sees another student praised for hard work, they may also hard work. If a student see another student getting scolded for some bad habit, they will also stop doing that sort of thing. Bobo Dole experiment, Bandura Hema's experiment showed that a children imitate aggressive behavior after observing adult behaving aggressively towards adult. This proves that aggression can be learned socially, right? Observation influences behavior. That is most important line. Remember, observation sometimes influence behavior. Your behavior, most of the time we learn everything by observing, right? We see this, we learn everything by observing. Somehow our parents, our teachers, celebrities, TV, movies, heroes, Spider-Man, all those things. Educational importance is teacher can act as a role model. Demonstration method helps learning. Positive classroom behavior can influence student. Moral values and social skills are learned through observation. Yes, in short, observation learning is a learning that occurs through watching others behavior and imitating it. So Albert Bandura's whole thing was this Bobodal experiment and observational learning. So remember that it will come in your exam. Question number 10. Bandura believed reinforcement is not always necessary for learning, because individual can learn by observing others' behavior and consequences. Bandura believed that yes, but not necessarily he to get their character to stick. It need like what reward and reinforcement, right? So both and are true and are correctly explained here, because he talked about motivation, but reinforcement not necessary, because he believed that that's his idea. So and question number 11. Behave Skinner is associated with the theory of what? Operant conditioning, discovery learning, cognitive development, or classical conditioning. B.F. Skinner is discovered operant conditioning. B.F. Skinner here is the theory of B.F. Skinner operant conditioning. Skinner believed that learning happens through rewards and punishment. Uh, like BF a little bit ago, we see Bandura doesn't believe in what it said. It doesn't need reinforcement. A kid can learn through imitating others. But BF Skinner is saying it's completely opposite. Here, Skinner believes that learning happens through rewards and punishment. That means reinforcement. Behavior that is rewarded is repeated while behavior that is punished decreases. That is true. A child teacher give a student a chocolate for completing homework, student become more likely to complete homework again. Yes, key terms are what reinforcement means. When you and reinforce something, the behavior increases. When you get punishment for it, that behavior decreases. So operant conditioning by B.F. Skinner is what? Operant conditioning is a theory in behaviorism which explains that behavior is shaped by its consequences. If consequences are pleasant, behavior tends to increase. That is true. If consequences are unpleasant, behavior tends to decrease. Number one is positive reinforcement. Definition: adding something pleasant after a behavior to increase that behaviors. Likewise, adding something pleasant. For example, if a student do good homework, adding something pleasant, he get rewarded for it. That means he will do homework every day. Formula is behavior, present stimulus added. Here present stimulus is reward or something, a compliment, good work, excellent, you did great job, that sort of thing. Behavior increases. Example: child completes homework, gets chocolate, student answer correctly, teacher praise him like good girl, good boy, that sort of thing. Effect: behavior becomes stronger and more frequent. Key idea is something desirable is added, you added something desirable, and that behavior started increasing. Then come negative reinforcement. uh, Definition is removing something unpleasant after a behavior to increase that behavior in the future. Removing something unpleasant after a behavior to increase that behavior in the future. For example, a kid does what good thing, but ultimately when he did bad thing in the past, you give them too much homework, but he did good work, so what you do is you remove those homeworks. Then over the time he said, well, if I do bad things then I get more homework, so maybe I'll just stop doing bad things so I don't get homework. In a way, negative reinforcement is also a positive reinforcement, right? So example is student finishes a classwork, extra assignment removed. For example, earlier he didn't do extra assignments, so he get lots and lots of what assignments, but that over the time he stopped doing that and finishing classwork, so extra assignment removed, and then he get relieved of this, punishment sort of things. Child cleans room, parents stop nagging. Effect: behavior increase because discomfort disappear, right? He said, well, if I start doing my chores and parents stop nagging, then what it does is just over the time doing all those things in time, and that means his nagging disappear. That means his extra negative reinforcement that he get from others, it removed. So key idea is something pleasant, unpleasant is removed. So at the time both is also a positive reinforcement if you see it in my eyes. And yes, question number 12 is according to Skinner, behavior is strengthened to what? Punishment only, reinforcement, maturation, or inside learning. So like here we talk about who? B.F. Skinner. So B.F. Skinner talk about what? Reinforcement. Behavior is strengthened by, if said according to Bandura, behavior is strengthened by what? The option will be what? Maturation is not. Maturation, imitation, and observing others. So B.F. Skinner talk about reinforcement and Bandura talk about imitating reinforcement. Yes, then come question number 13. Which of the following is an example of positive reinforcement? Removing privilege after misconduct, giving praise for good performance, ignoring correct answer, or assigning punishment one. So the answer is giving praise for good performance is positive reinforcement. We talked about that. Question number 14. According to Skinner, teaching machines and program learning are based on what? Operant conditioning principle, or cognitive conflict, or discovery learning, or social interaction. So BF Skinner talk about what? Operant conditioning principles. So machines and program learning are based on what? Operant conditioning principles, of course. Question number 15. Which psychologist emphasized spiral curriculum? We talked about it nearly 12 minutes earlier. Jerome Brunner talked about spiral curriculum. So yeah, we already discussed that in earlier topic. Question number 16. According to Brunner, any subject can be taught effectively to any child if taught through punishment. No. Presented appropriately according to development level. No. Development level. If you present appropriately according to development level or memorize repeatedly. I don't think if you present it appropriately according to development, yes, that works too. When you present according to his development level, and I repeated it. But if it's said repeatedly, not memorized, but going back with deeper knowledge or deeper understanding, then it will be the answer. So here's present recording development level. Question number 17. Assertion. Skinner opposed punishment as an effective long-term learning strategy. That is correct. He is opposed that punishment, because punishment may suppress behavior temporarily but does not teach desired behavior effect. That is true. Both A and R are true and correctly explained. If you punish someone and over that, if you punish too much, I see many fathers beating their kids, and they get more and more bad over the time. So different association is needed here. So both A and R are true and are correctly explained. Question number 18. Question number 18 is Thorndike learning theory is also known as what? Connectionism, because he talked about stimulus and response and connectionism. So answer should be connectionism. Question Edward, here is the thing: connectionism to S and R stimulus we already discussed in earlier of this video. Question number 19. Which of the following is an example of observational learning? Solving puzzles independently, learning aggressive behavior by watching violent media. So you learning something, you are observing something, so the answer should be learning aggressive behavior by watching violent media. Yes, that is your answer. Question number 20. Skinner operant conditioning focuses mainly on what? Internal mental process or consequences of behavior or cognitive structure or biological maturation. Operant conditioning based on what? Consequences of behavior or cognitive structure. So the answer is consequences of behavior, because operant condition is about what? Reinforcement, positive and negative. So because if you behavior is, you get what? Based on your behavior. So consequences, action has consequences, action and behavior, that outcome is your consequences. Which of the following is not associated with Bandura's social learning theory? Modeling is Bandura's social learning theory. Imitation, yes. Vicarious reinforcement, not reinforce, it is in classical conditioning reflexes maybe. Vicarious reinforcement is not. Wait a second. Which of the following is not associated with Bandura's social learning theory? Model not associated. Wait a second. So there's the thing. Vicarious reinforcement. Well, we have to talk about it. Classical conditioning reflexes. So Albert Bandura social learning theory focus on learning through observing others, right? So modeling imitation is necessary, but he does not talk about vicarious reinforcement. Learning by seeing other reward. Oh, wait a second. So we get that. So when you see some, well, we already discussed that, right? If we see someone get punished for something, we also stop doing that, because ultimately we fear that we will also get punished for that. So yes, vicarious reinforcement is also. However, classical condition reflex are always Ivan Pavlov and behavior is not Bandura. Yes, classical condition reflex is Ivan Pavlov. We already discussed that in the class 4 or 3. Check the module now. Question number 22. According to Brunner, the symbolic mode of representation involves learning through language and symbols. So answer is learning through language and symbols. So match the following. Question number 23. Inactive representation is what? Learning through actions, right? So A is 2. Iconic is learning through images. A. B is 3. Symbolic is words and symbol, and modeling is Bandura. So the answer is A is 2. 1 and 3 has A is 2. Iconic is image, that is B is 3. So the answer is 1. Yes, answer is 1. Question number 24. Which of the following best reflects Skinner program learning? Immediate feedback and reinforcement, or punishment center, or discovered through guidance, or group discussion? Immediate feedback and reinforcement, yes, because positive, negative reinforcement, that's what the whole of the deal was. According to the Thorndike practice standard learning, this is the idea of what? Law of exercise. Obviously, when you practice makes perfect is all about law of exercise. We already talked about them in the earlier of these videos. Here also added. Question number 26. Brunner believed learner are active participant in learning. Yes, because they had to discover something, so they had to explore, and to explore you have to be active. So yes, reason is knowledge is best acquired through exploration and discovery. True. So both A and R are true, and R is the correct explanation of A. Question number 27. So that was 26. Yes, both A and R are true. Jerome Brunner's. Yes. Question number 27. Which of the following classroom practices best reflects Bandura's theory? Encourage students to learn through role models. Yes, Bandura talked about what? modeling, imitation, right? Memorization, punishment, ignoring nope, so encouraging students through models, role models. Question number 28. Negative reinforcement involves what? Giving rewards, removing an unpleasant stimulus after desired behavior. So the answer is number 2, because you are removing an unpleasant stimulus after a desired behavior occurred. So that is your answer. Question number 29. Which of the following psychologists believed learning occurs through stimulus response? We already talked about Edward L. Thorndike, E.L. Thorndike. Question number 30. The Little Albert experiment is associated with what? B.F. Skinner, John Watson, Piaget, or biographies about John Watson. So let's talk about Little Albert a little bit. The Little Albert experiment was a famous and controversial psychology study conducted in 1920 by John B. Watson and his assistant Rosalie Rayner. It demonstrated how classical conditioning could be used to create emotional responses in humans. Purpose of the experiment is Watson wanted to show that emotions such as fear are learned, not just inherited. He was influenced by even Pavlov's work on classical conditioning in dogs. So what he did is he used a infant named Little Albert. So the subject was 9 months old infant called Little Albert. Before conditioning, Albert was shown several objects: a white rat, a rabbit, a dog, mask, and cotton. He showed no fear towards those objects. Conditioning process was Watson then paired the white rat with loud, frightening sound made by striking a steel bar with hammer behind Albert. Rat alone, no fear, but with the sound, fear and crying. After repeated pairing, Albert began to fear the rat even when the noise was absent, because his brain was already capturing the result. Albert's fear spread to this similar furry object, rabbit, fur coat, Santa Claus mask with white beards. As he was kid, he was being conditioned, so that was very brutal actually. He has, when you see rat with loud sound, first in no fear, but over the time, everything that has furry things around it, he started fearing this. This demonstrated stimulus generalization where a learned response transfer to similar stimuli. For example, if you see a cat, right, then when you are very little, the kid was 9 months old. Those times scientists were brutal. What they did to this kid was very brutal. In the name of science, but the kid would be traumatized. Even when he is 90, he will fear furry things, right? Because it was deeply rooted in his system. You know, same as if a kid saw swimming, a traumatic experience, for example. Even a kid when he saw swimming and someone drowned, he will always fear that. But this one is a bit more, you know. So the thing was Little Albert experiment. That was, yes, that is why it is controversial, and I feel bad for the little kid. But yes, it demonstrated how classical conditioning could be used to create emotional responses in me. How classical conditioning could be used to create emotional responses in him, and like whatever they used to get fear out of him, and that is also an emotion. So the experiment became a major example of classical conditioning, learned emotional response behavior in psychology. It influenced later studies on phobias and learning. Like we have phobia, we are phobic to what? Some like the example I gave, swimming. We can be phobic to spider. If you when we are little, you got really brutally scared by spider. For whole lifetime, we'll fear spider, right? Ethical problem was Then comes the ethical problem. Today, the experiment is considered highly unethical because Albert was intentionally distressed. Researchers did not properly reduce his fear afterward. Informed consent standards were weak. The child identity and later life were unclear. Modern physiological, psychological ethics rule would not allow such experiments. Yes, that was the time when, yeah, maybe they didn't even in black kids because everyone was racist and everything. The later Edinburgh experience showed that a person can learn to fear something neutral when it is repeatedly associated with frightening experience. Even the most thing that we, for example, a cuddly bear, a cuddly panda, right? We don't fear that. But over the time, if you see, when you're a kid or something, you see a murderous panda doing murdering thing and brutal thing, violent things, slasher thing in movies. And if the kids somehow, that is why the movies has what 13 plus, 18 plus, and those sorts of age grouping. So if a kid saw a murderous panda, and over the time he will fear even a simple doll that looks like panda or anything. So that's the thing, that fear can be taught even when there is nothing to fear about. Fear something can one person learn through conditioning. So this is the end of it. Thank you for watching. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Name of the channel is Jack Leader Notes. Study hard, work smart, and everything. And goodbye and have a nice day.